This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah! Another myth bites the dust.
Hello, TPR Nation. This is Amber Kim from The Perfect REA. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday, where I'll be covering the highlights and action items from this week's episodes. Matt and Micah's episode on Monday was all about surge and making the most of the opportunity that you have during your spring surge. Because most advisors are doing their surge in a similar time frame as Matt and Micah, which is during March and April, now is that time where you need to be having a meeting with your team to understand everything that's happening with surge, including days, times, what's going on the email invitation, and what's being handed out. On Monday, Matt and Micah talked about the basics of what surge is, recommendations for client invitations and agendas, and why you need to have your team involved starting now. Micah discussed the basics of what surge is because he said oftentimes he'll hear some confusion from other advisors. He said that surge is a concept where we're going to condense seeing all of the clients in the next 6 months within the next 4 to 5 weeks. It does not mean that you need to do 30 to 40 meetings a week. It's about being intentional. You're doing this so that you can add the most value and be hyper intentional about the times that you choose. In addition, Matt said it's probably 75 to 90% of your meetings for that 6-month period happening during that surge time. It's the same number of meetings, but doing things again and again in a manner that improves your productivity. And he said, while this is beneficial for your lifestyles and for working on projects, it ultimately benefits the client the most because they're getting a repeatable experience, which in turn creates a better experience. Micah said that leaves all the rest of the time available for the other things that you want to do. So the projects, learning, become a better leader, or becoming a better advisor. Matt added that he has yet to meet an advisor who implemented surge and regretted it. It's transformed their practice. Micah said there's a misconception that there's no other work to be done outside of surge. A lot of work is being done in surge, but in order for there to be a successful surge, there's a lot that you have to ramp up and get ready to do. He said getting your team on board is a huge element in surge. When sending out meeting invitations, Matt said this is a time to look at what the agenda is and include that in the meeting invitation and highlight what will be reviewed. Micah's recommendation was that when sending out the invitation, they always ask the client what questions they have and want to add to the agenda. He said most clients don't reply, but he's received positive feedback from this. It empowers the client to ask questions. For the surge client agendas, Matt and Micah discussed how this works in each of their offices. Micah also mentioned that sometimes he'll get head trash when he's planning out his surge agenda because he's thinking there's only 5 minutes worth of content that he's sharing. But he knows that adding more items to that agenda doesn't equal adding more value. However, it doesn't limit or restrict what he can talk about. Both Matt and Micah start off their agenda by asking clients their questions and concerns. Matt said that if a client has a question that you haven't gotten to, they're not listening to anything else that you say until that question has been addressed. Part of your preparation for surge is also doing a rehearsal. You've heard Matt and Micah mention this before, but you don't want that first client meeting to be the first time you're going through the process. Micah is a huge fan of doing a dress rehearsal with the entire team in the office. This includes the team's actual attire. They'll run through everything to make sure that it works. Matt added that part of that rehearsal is having a surge packet ready and really going through that, including speaking through the entire meeting process, especially if you're new at this. He said that when you do that, that's where you can notice if something needs to be changed or if it isn't right. And Micah said this should be done with real client data. He'll run through this with the first few clients that will be actually coming in, and this is where he'll notice the little things that need to be tweaked. He'll bring his team in to do this as well, and he'll go through this as the client because that then allows them to see why things matter. But what about advisors who want to next level their surge? Matt and Micah shared some recommendations, such as sending a video summary to clients after meetings and for those who couldn't attend, or look at how you can remove things from your agenda. Micah said he'll only pull out the things that he knows he needs to have during the meeting, and he has additional items on standby in case he needs them. He also recommends having your relationship managers follow up with a client 1 to 2 weeks beforehand to see where they're at with their client homework and check on any questions that they have. He added that one of the benefits of doing this is that sometimes the clients will tell relationship managers things that they won't tell the advisor. Lastly, Matt added that they want to have the relationship managers have their own agenda for when the client comes in. This could be one thing such as updating the driver's license or updating trusted contacts. He said, don't waste that opportunity to set expectations and to get the client excited for the meeting, but also it allows them to deal with something valuable. Let's get into action items from Monday's episode. Remember, nothing new in Surge. Have a place to capture ideas or system breakdowns that come up during Surge and things to implement after Surge. Backstage Pass and Invictus members, be sure to watch our videos within the member site on how to implement Surge, and be sure to post your questions about Surge in our member forum. Get your team on board with Surge and set clear expectations with them. Lastly, save the date for some upcoming events. We have the Perfect RA live event and Retirement Tax Services Tax Summit at the end of September. And on March 29th, we will have our next Nation Power Session. Our Nation Power Sessions are live webinars that are open to anyone who's interested in learning more ways to deliver massive value to our clients. Be on the lookout for our registration soon at theperfectra.com. On this week's What Works Wednesday, Matt was joined by BenVerWys. Ben is from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and is the founder of Fiduciary Financial Advisors. Matt and Ben first met at an XY conference, and then they started doing masterminds together. Matt and Ben kicked off the episode talking about their experiences at masterminds, including doing stunt car driving in Atlanta. Ben said the industry is very isolating and lonely, even if you have other people at your firm. So doing a mastermind the way that they do them is so unique, and he hasn't been able to replicate that experience. Matt added that when you go to a conference, you spend a lot of time screening other people. Not everyone enjoys talking to other advisors. And as Ben said, the mastermind process filters that out quickly. Ben shared how he started out in the industry and how the early years was a lot of learning for him. He talked about how at one point he was the first one in and the last one out. He loved the work he was doing, but he was frustrated by the lack of challenge. He decided to go to graduate school where he studied the history of the industry because he wanted to understand the why behind the work. He felt he needed to do the work a certain way, and he couldn't do that as a W-2 employee, and he couldn't locate the type of firm that he wanted to be a part of. So he started a firm because he felt he had a skill set that the world needed. Matt asked Ben to share some thoughts to give an advisor who's thinking about the independent space. Ben said that the advice he usually gives is to share what he's built and provide some things that he's run into. He said regardless of where someone is in their journey, rarely is it as simple as they have in their mind. And that if you're good at this work, there will be opportunities galore, and that you need to know what you're building. His learned lesson is that he didn't know what he was building, and everything looked new and shiny. He said if you don't know what you're building, it will build itself and you'll lose your choice in controlling the matter. Let's get into action items from Wednesday's episode. Be honest with yourself about what you're building, and be honest with others who understand who you are and get feedback from them. Understand what you want your ideal life to look like and then back into that. And remember that you can have an ideal life and do really well for clients. And lastly, look at what you're trying to build and then figure out what path makes the most sense for you. On this week's Worlds to Conquer, Jamie kicked off the episode by talking about why you need to have an up-periscope meeting every once in a while. This is a meeting where you look around to make sure that everything you're implementing is going as successfully as what you outlined it to be. Jamie said that sometimes things articulate differently in your mind than what your team understands, and sometimes the team doesn't know every detail. As a financial advisor, you should go through things step by step to make sure that what is in your mind is understood by your team. You also have to make sure that things are happening the way that they should with your clients. Jamie talked about how she sent a survey out to her employees with only 3 questions, which allows her to see where the team is and also to get their feedback. The first question she asked is, where do we as a firm spend a lot of time on, but little value is being provided to the client? This was important because they talk about delivering massive value all the time with clients, and asking this question resulted in different feedback from each of the teams. Jamie gave an example where the relationship managers thought that every time they picked up the phone and every communication was of value. Value is defined by having a level of importance or usefulness. So they sat down together to define what is and isn't value. This also resulted in a discussion on what done means. So what the team heard was that they would continually call the client until a certain point, which resulted in an excessive number of calls. But Jamie would have never known that this was happening without asking this question. The second thing she asked is, where are we spending little time, but would be of more value if we spent more time towards this? The feedback was that with prospects, the team was spending a lot of time explaining the personal fact finder, which wasn't a fillable form, and was resulting in the prospect having a less than desirable experience. The team hired someone to make the form editable, which then created a better experience for both the team and the client. She also received feedback on their net worth report. The team said it was great, but they would get questions from the spouse as to what happens if one of them dies. So they created a death worth report to answer some of those tough questions. And last, she asked, what in your words is your responsibility? She said oftentimes employees don't know their areas of responsibility, so based on that response, you can have those conversations about what those roles and responsibilities should be. All of these questions that are asked are done outside of Surge. Anything for Surge, they create a space where everyone can put their notes and thoughts in. They take no changes or actions during Surge. Jamie shared one exception that they've made, which was when COVID first hit. Jamie shared how they handled this both internally with leadership, the team, and with their clients who were concerned. She said that they stepped up to make sure that their clients were making good and sound decisions. The only change they made was to extend their Surge by a week to make sure that they could have those conversations with their clients. Other than that, they continued with the same momentum and plan with the team. They wanted to make sure that they kept the team focused as well and help them know that the only thing they could control was their own actions. It kept them in a headspace that they had to turn off the news and know that they were with people who had the same goals. Let's get into some action items from Thursday's episode. If you're interested in learning more about our Invictus membership and would like to get on a call with Tracy, our Chief Growth Officer, email us at lifestyle@theperfectra.com. Also, the perfect RA is not theory. It's fact and reality from those who spent years refining things and learned the hard way about what doesn't work. Everything shared has already been tested and refined. So, do what works and join the perfect RA. Take what we're doing and deliver that to your client. Also, do Surge and use the dates that Jamie shared. They've refined this for a reason. Those dates are mid-March through mid-April and mid-October through mid-November, with some mini surges sprinkled throughout the year. And lastly, have an up-periscope meeting with your team so that you're asking the important questions and listen to their answers so that they have an opportunity to talk about what is and isn't working for your practice. That wraps up this week's recap. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday. Be sure to give us 5 stars wherever you're enjoying this podcast and share this or any of our episodes with another advisor or a team member who you think might benefit from listening. And until next time, happy planning.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife.